Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade, focused on student support and digital experience. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. We'll be bringing you their perspectives on how digital transformation is reshaping the way we recruit, engage, and graduate learners. You'll hear firsthand accounts of how institutional leaders are developing their strategy, as well as get deeper on the stories of how these EdTech tools are being built to foster better student outcomes. With that, let's get to today's episode. Welcome back, everyone, to another super special live episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast here at Transact 360 in Las Vegas. Super excited and grateful to be here. It's always a treat for me to be able to talk with a CIO with your sort of vantage point and perspective on the digital transformation that's happening at your institution and kind of across the whole ecosystem. So, Derek, if you want to just briefly introduce yourself and what brings you to T360.
Yeah, thanks, Dustin. My name is Derek Bierman. I'm the Chief Information Officer for Doane University. I've been in higher ed for almost 20 years now, before that in business and industry. Got into higher education because I got bit by the bug. You know, that phrase where education is the great equalizer. I fell in love with that for some crazy reason. And so here I am in EdTech.
Awesome. And have you been to T360 before? Is this your first time?
No, this is my first time. We haven't been customers of Transact very long. We actually did a record-breaking install of many of Transact's technologies right after COVID. And so we had replaced a whole bunch of infrastructure. I was looking for a partner. We tried a couple of other companies that were kind of dead ends, and then so we switched to Transact and never looked back.
Awesome. Like I said, I think you as a chief information officer at an institution, certainly you can speak a lot to your own institution, but I'm sure you just have, maybe insights from your fellow CIOs and things and other spaces and places that you are part of. But what trends are you seeing right now when it comes to sort of campus innovation, certainly grounded in the sense of like digital transformation and, services and tools and platforms and those sort of things. But like, what trends are you seeing right now?
Well, right now, the biggest question mark is AI. Artificial intelligence, machine learning. And so I'll put a pin in that one just for a minute because that one kind of comes back and explains all the rest. In higher education, cybersecurity continues to be one of the top issues. We have a record number of colleges that are getting hit with all kinds of different types of attacks. Zero trust is kind of a big thing right now in higher ed, which drives operations crazy. Also, I would say the student experience is becoming more and more important. I'll connect that back to AI in a minute. And educational spaces is becoming huge. Doane University is launching a University Innovation and Development Center. This is a new initiative that our board is sponsoring, and that's got fresh paint on it right now. We're still writing the plans of what that means, but that's getting after things like partnerships with business and industry, creating like hubs of innovation where faculty want to innovate and trying to streamline processes for how people get access to new and innovative technologies. My president, for example, sent me an email just the other day that came from another president that said, I'm not going to have 1,000 ways to do AI. And right now at Doane, we have 1,000 ways to do AI. So this innovation center, we basically are creating it to try to create it as a hub to kind of funnel all this stuff in there and see if we can figure out what Doane is going to do about AI. Other things are ripping and tearing out legacy systems. Something else, kind of a dirty little secret for CIOs right now, is what to do with the cloud. AI has created a situation where cloud is becoming more and more expensive, almost cost prohibitive. And so that's a trend that CIOs are pulling stuff back in-house. People don't know that. I'm probably giving away a big secret, but the costs are becoming double and triple. And so that's a pattern that's happening right now. And personal experiences, when I'm talking about the student experiences, I'll bring back in AI now. Everyone is looking at how AI can help deliver more personalized experiences to students. And that's also like on the way into college. How do I do a better job of communicating masses of students and helping them decide whether or not they're going to come to Doane or go to Ohio State or wherever? And then also on the retention side. I have 300 contracts that I manage a year. Of those 300, all 300 have some form of AI attached to them. And so we're trying to wrap our heads around how are we going to do this, because AI, although ChatGPT seems free for individuals, for colleges it's not. And so how are we going to wrap our heads around the costs of dealing with those things? So it's every year I say this. It's super exciting to be in EdTech right now, and it's a nightmare being in EdTech right now. Every year it always seems like I'm saying the same thing. But I'm an optimist, glass half full guy, so I'm always looking at what we can get out of technology to improve our student experiences.
Yeah, yeah, and I think just like resource management and like cloud migration. Our final episode will be talking a little bit more about that in detail, but like that's just not like a foregone conclusion or whatever. Like that there maybe would be some resistance to that, or just how it's been sort of predominantly done within the past several years. But so that's an interesting one, and I think just the proliferation, like, is it like, because I was curious, just sort of like the scope of like your work and understanding how many different things are out there, and trying to support tools that are like across the entire student life cycle and everything. I think it's a lot of things to be sort of considerate of, and how I think, like, I guess is like a brief follow-up, because I feel like it's been sort of in the ether a lot here, is the idea of like how are our tools like interoperable and sort of working together and integrating with one another, or sharing data and different things. So is that something that's on your mind, is sort of determining and evaluating things that feel like they kind of play nice with each other?
There are three major broad areas of focus right now. There's lots of different ways to approach it, but for me right now, integration is huge. Like, integration is huge, and how to do integration affordably. Colleges are getting away from building stuff into more of buying stuff. And so when we're using what I call the college process and how we're going to decide in what we invest in technologies, sometimes we're handed things that don't talk well to each other. And so how are we going to overcome that? I think this is one of the areas where colleges are going to have to be good at it. Like, you're going to have to be good at it. You can't use mercenaries. You're going to have to use patriots when it comes to the integration piece. Otherwise, you might end up in a situation where you don't know how to make changes to how your integration works. Or I'm just worried about technical debt building up, so that's an area where we're investing. Analytics is still huge, but analytics is changing, I think, with AI, or at least that's the hope. Analytics is hard. And so we're hoping that AI can automate and speed those things up. 300 contracts of technologies that don't all have to talk to each other, but it's tough to keep your arms wrapped around that. We're in budget season right now, and my CFO is looking at me, hey, can you cut 10%? And I'm like, well, technology companies are coming back to me and saying, hey, expect double-digit increases in licensing right now due to inflation. So the business side of things when it comes to ed tech is a bit of a tough thing to grapple. Something else, another pattern in higher education that's becoming, well, it's popular for me, is creating partnerships. And so Doane is a founding member of a new incorporated consortium called CANE. And our goal is around shared services. It's a CIO consortium. And so to be a member, you have to be a CIO. We have about 12 to 20 members, depending on how you count a member. And what we're looking at is how can we actually share technologies, share the costs, share the benefits, and those kinds of things, while also saving money, if that makes sense. And we have some successes that is too much time to get into here, but these types of ways of thinking, I think, are how colleges are going to have to think going forward, just for the technologies to be affordable.
Interesting. Yeah, I always like hearing about those sort of like networked approaches, and how sort of like, rising tide can lift all ships, how we can like, acknowledge that we're sort of all kind of like on the same team, in a sense of like, working in higher education. And generally, like, I feel like this field is like very cooperative, does a lot of show and tell, and sort of, doing all that. And I'd imagine like maybe like, regional publics in the same area might be, where it's like, how could we collaborate, support each other and everything. So I think it's tough to think where it's just like a lot of institutions are different and have different specialities and strengths and things. And like, how do we just maintain, I guess, like a healthy ecosystem or something, like that we're not sort of just like, collapsing in on ourselves or something. Like, we've already seen that like a lot of institutions have been closing and merging, and it's just like it's tough for students, it's tough for communities and stuff. So yeah, it's like how can we kind of band together? So I'm curious, any quick reflections on like how all this stuff, all this kind of digital transformation and everything has impacted the way that you even just sort of like work with your colleagues and communicate and collaborate and all that kind of stuff? Because I think that's part of it, is like when you have good interoperable tools and things, like people can get the insights they need when they need them, or there's some transparency there or something. So just how you work with your colleagues, how is that sort of showing up?
Well, so are you thinking colleagues internally or externally?
I would say internally, I guess, is where my brain was going. Yeah.
We're having conversations about that every day. I mean, every day I have every day, but weekly, I have an actual official meeting where we're meeting as a leadership team, and we're learning every day that no one can do anything without technology at this point. Like, everybody is basically held hostage by the services that I'm delivering. My president even said, this is really the new architecture. We're going to have to start thinking about technology instead of buildings. Like we have to have the technology right first. And at Doane, that's what we've been doing for the past 10 years, is ripping out what I call technical debt. Every CIO knows what it is. And it's all this legacy stuff, and how do you get rid of this stuff to get the new stuff in? How do you get the new stuff to talk to everything? And so I would say when I'm thinking about my internal colleagues and the challenges, and we're talking about how technology intersects with all of their areas and divisions, priority is our biggest challenge. So like what is the biggest priority that we should be working on now? I commit to one project, and I've got like 5 shadow projects that are kicking up dust, and people have like shadow expectations that we're going to get these things done, and I have to get on top of it's like whack-a-mole. I have to get on top of those things right away, otherwise I miss deadlines on the actual priority projects. And that's really hard. I tell my president all the time, like, you're like a mayor of a town. Like you're the mayor, and you got to go around and try to get everybody to agree on something. Every business in town, every main street, like you're trying to get everybody to pull in one direction, and you really have no ability to actually hold anybody accountable or anything. Like, you're doing it almost purely on your charisma, if that makes sense. And so that's kind of what it's like also for me too when it comes to the technology standpoint. Like, we're gonna have to decide what's the most important. Is enrollment the most important? Is it personalization and student experience the most important? Or is it analytics and the finances so we can find $10,000 in the budget? Like, and both those things are hard. So that's really where we spend a lot of time, is either re-solidifying what we say that we want to do from a strategic standpoint, or are we changing? Like, just 2 weeks ago, we decided that we were just going to change our strategic plan and reprioritize something new, which caused a lot of chaos downstream for people who were expecting certain technologies. But we can't afford to work on everything all the time, all at once anymore.
Well, and I guess, it seems like it's sort of like, trying to think of the right, like, colorful metaphor, but like that digital transformation is making those sort of like conversations in the committees, or like people talking to each other, just even about like prioritization strategy. Like, you're doing that to kind of ride the wave of digital transformation, but then like digital transformation can impact sort of like something going on or whatever else. Like, it then makes you have to like reprioritize or something. Like, it's sort of like on both ends. Like, you're trying to like say like, okay, well, what are we replacing or updating or implementing when and how? But then like depending on just what's going on, it could be like, oh my gosh, well, this tool isn't being supported anymore, or I don't know, like we just experienced like a cybersecurity attack, or like it's just that idea of like that is how anymore, I guess, institutions, from what you're saying, I guess what I'm gathering is like that you had like you reevaluated your strategy and change priorities, and that like that's okay, and that's important to be adaptable and flexible in that way, just because like you just need to be responsive to what's going on, versus being like, well, we set this strategic plan 3 years ago, or year 3 of 5, and like we're just sort of like, we're on the path, we have to do it because we have to, or whatever. I don't
No, I know exactly what you mean. So We got a new president 5 years ago. He's a football coach. That was his first career until he decided he wanted to run a college. Best boss I ever had. I'm not just saying that because he might be listening. Here's what I love about him is he's adaptable. So we used to create 5-year strategic plans. We created a 3-year strategic plan. And now today I would tell you my strategic plan is the whiteboard in his office, because we're constantly reevaluating where are we at and what's the most important. And I'm comfortable with that. Not everybody is comfortable with that. But if you really want to know where we're at, regardless of what our paper strategic plan says, it's really what the priorities are, what's written on my president's whiteboard.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll wrap it there because I guess if you can maybe quickly synthesize together, because my last question I've been asking everybody is sort of like, what's on the horizon that you're sort of like, anticipating, or, what you feel like higher ed leaders should be, keeping their eye on the horizon in the near future, just sort of like kind of bring it all together, because I feel like we've had a very sort of, future-oriented kind of conversation here, but just like final thoughts on, prioritization, what higher ed leaders should be anticipating right now and thinking about.
I would say that higher education leaders, not just CIOs, really need to be strategic about what they're investing in right now. Otherwise, you're going to make mistakes, and that we're still making mistakes. For example, I just did an 18-month implementation on a technology, and then that company just came out and rolled out and said, here's our new version, and by the way, you have to re-implement it. If you want to use the new version, you have to migrate your data from the old version to the new one, because we can't auto-update that for you. Well, that was a $250,000 priority mistake. We probably should have waited before we implemented that project. Technology is just moving so fast right now, you really have to be paying attention. And when you go to the table with those committees and those things, you need to be informed. You can't just take orders, otherwise you're going to cost your institution a lot of time and money.
Yeah. It's well put and good things to be mindful of, and appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. We're both at the conference here, so just thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Geek podcast. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly in your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.